We should be live. As usual, I'm going to check the live stream, double check. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to see where the stream ends up. All right. Dave, this is the life of the live streamer. I'm pretty good with the recordings, but with the live here we go. Okay. I just want to triple check so we don't get 15 minutes deep into this and realize that that all is lost. It looks like we're here, but I want to make sure that people can watch this live chat replay. Save. Okay, that's what I wanted. The last two that wasn't checked for some reason. They changed their defaults, and I had to take the recording and upload it. But then people lose the live chat, so we're all good to go. All right. Well, everyone who's watching live, welcome. I'm Camden Busey. I'm in Libertyville, Illinois, at the Reform Forum headquarters. Really excited to be back today and talking about some important work. We're going to be speaking today about Word and Deed Ministries and their efforts to provide for both the spiritual and the physical needs of people in developing countries, and their efforts to do so according to biblical principles, even a good, solid Reformed ecclesiology, and to do so for the glory of God. And to discuss this with me today, we have Dave Vander Meer of Word and Deed. Welcome, Dave. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. Happy to be here. Thank you, Cam.
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited to speak. We've met on many occasions at various conferences around the country. We also had the privilege to welcome you to the office as you're passing through more recently, and we've even had you at our church at Hope to speak about Word and Deed. Dave, where have you been recently? We know that you're kind of a road warrior, as we're not so much word warriors as you are, but certain times a year we are, Ryan, Noah, and I. But where are some of where are some of the places you've been recently to exhibit?
Well, I got home last night at 10 from California. So I was in Southern California.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before that, I had been in the Chicago area. And then late July, early August, I spent a week with one of our partners in Ecuador. So
Yeah. Were you the partners? One thing. Were you in California and Chicago area? Were you mainly speaking at churches, or were there some events going on?
yeah, the churches. I attended a classis meeting.
Yeah.
Met with some pastors, all that kind of normal stuff. And
Oh, that's
in
good.
about a month, we got a dinner tour. So in 8 days, our partner from Uganda is coming. So in
Oh,
eight
yeah.
days, we're going from Linden, Washington to Grand Rapids to the south suburbs of Chicago
Hmm.
to Northwest Iowa to New Jersey.
Yeah, that's all over the place. That's great. But I love this idea of a dinner tour. I think I want to start one of these so we can go from place to place. That's fun. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff today. Many people, I hope, will be aware of Word and Deed Ministries. I hope a lot of our listeners and viewers are maybe even supporters, maybe even subscribers to the newsletter and getting information. But other people, especially OPC people, might be partnering with Word and Deed and not know it. So we'll talk about that
Yeah.
today with some of the joint efforts, or at least things we're both involved in. And I'm excited to talk about that. But Dave, why don't you provide for us maybe a thumbnail sketch of the present work of Word and Deed, and maybe just a little bit about the history, just to set the table.
Sure. And you already got our mission in there, so I won't start with that. But
Okay.
yeah, so Word and Deed started in Canada in 1994, and our first project was a rural hospital in Guatemala, serving
Mm,
a Mayan community, like a literal Mayan community.
wow.
And we're still involved with that. Which is kind of nice because when we first started with them, you're the full supporter. Well, now they're 90% self sufficient, and that's
Oh,
one of
that's
the
great.
things we try to get them to be that. But then the United States, our first project was 2004. The paperwork was done earlier, but and so that's Malawi, an orphan care program in Malawi, and that was actually that orphan care program was started by a PCA pastor.
Mm,
Um, his name was Dr. Timothy Matsma. He ran a ministry called Cities for Christ Worldwide, which was
mm,
a combination of theological education, but also some orphan care. So then when he retired, that was run out of Escondido, California. So
mm.
when he retired, then he asked us to take on the orphan care program. So that was something. But even though I said one was Canada, one is United States, we do function as Word and Deed North
Right.
America.
I
So
got
you
you.
know that's just the timeline of how each of them started. You know, with something.
Yeah, and
So
there's some just, legal uh things, no
yeah,
doubt.
we
I
have
know I serve on the board of Mid America, and there's a foundation in Canada that just, and its sole purpose is to support the work of the seminary in the States, but Canadians can't give directly to a United
right.
States nonprofit and get uh, a tax deduction for it. So there are some useful ways of structuring an organization, but still, yeah, you're united. It's not as if you
Yeah,
have,
yeah, exactly.
a division between the two countries. So that's good. And not only an international organization in terms of your governance, so to speak, but also certainly, and more importantly, in terms of your focus. Yeah, you're all over in terms of the work that you're doing. What are you're not just focused even in one continent. You mentioned
Yeah.
Malawi, you mentioned Uganda earlier. Where are some of the main fields where you're laboring at the moment or
Well,
supporting?
we are in 17 countries right now with
Hmm.
25 partners with 55 ongoing projects. I would say if we would tip a little bit, we probably tip to Central and South America, probably just because we started with those projects earlier,
Mm,
generally speaking.
hmm.
Um, but we're in 4 or 5 countries in Africa, and then yeah, 3 or 4 countries in Southeast Asia too, as well. So
Hmm.
uh, yeah, so yeah, it's kind of split up, but maybe a touch heavier in South and Central America.
Mm.
So
One thing I find that's interesting about you, and correct me if my presentation or the way I'm putting things isn't entirely accurate or could be improved, but it seems you act as a bridge
yes,
between a lot of times North American churches, but also businesses and individuals on the one side, and then churches and missions who are laboring in developing countries on the other. Can you expand on that and explain,
yeah,
where you live on that intersection or that
yeah,
gap between those 2?
yeah, sure. Interesting because if I even back up a little bit there, some of our
Mhm.
projects were actually run by individual churches or a couple people
Mm,
that were a group of churches in a certain area. Um, and then the work outgrew them.
yeah.
We've had that experience with the work that's tied to the OPC. We've had that with URC. We've had that with Canadian Reformed, where they have started something and just said, you know what, as volunteers from our churches, we really can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how a lot of our projects have started um, as well. So that's the starting point for a lot of that. And so
Mhm.
then where were we going after that? Because I I lost my train of thought after
Oh,
going
no,
back to
yeah,
this.
well, you function as a bridge, that's how things get
Yeah,
started and
yeah,
connected, but
yeah,
what I mean, that's an ongoing activity that
yep,
you're helping or connecting these 2. So what does that look like day to day? Or maybe I could just ask, what are some examples of some of your mission work and your activities right now? Because that might be a more concrete way of explaining to people what you're
the
engaged
bridge.
in. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, the bridge, is really us reaching out to the churches that, support us. We go to these places, all of my colleagues, we all have project oversight. We have specific partners that we each work with. So I go to Kenya and Costa Rica and Ecuador, and I work specifically with our partners. And then I'm bringing that information back to the churches, to those that
Mm,
support it. We kind of do that through our magazines, but yeah, we have businesses and groups of people that actually come together and support projects as a group. So then I come once a year. to the groups that I'm involved in. In Canada, they call them business groups. In the United States, we call them stewardship groups. But then I
Mm,
report back to these groups. But I'm doing the same thing to churches. I did 2 church presentations this
mhm,
past Sunday. We want to have that relationship to the churches so that they know that they can trust us, but they also
mhm.
know what's going on in a timely fashion. We look at our magazine doing that on a broader scale to everybody at all, at all times. But that's really how we view ourselves as a bridge. That we have relationships. Some of the relationships in the developing world started because of the churches coming to us and saying, "Hey, can you help us with this?" And now us going back to the churches and saying, "This is how the work is progressing, and this is what's going on."
Yeah. Well, you're engaged in a wide range of activities. Obviously, we mentioned up front, and we wouldn't be speaking with you if you weren't based on solid Reformed principles and a Reformed
Yeah,
ecclesiology. That's one thing we love about you so much. But the name, word indeed, is quite indicative also of just the nature of the work. We can get into also the relationship to the church and you know the Great Commission and gospel ministry proper. And speaking of the proclamation of the gospel by ordained ministers within the context of a local church, certainly we want to talk about that. But I'd love if you could just paint the breadth of the activities because you're engaged in all sorts of things, not just proclamation and
yeah.
theological training, but also practical service.
Yeah, the one caveat I would add to that is
Mm,
all those different ideas of service and work
mhm.
and projects is all with the idea of the gospel goes with it.
Sure,
Those are
of
to
course.
us tools. Yeah, are
Yeah.
just tools
Yeah.
to bring the gospel. But we have Christian after school programs in many countries. Uh, some tied to shanty towns, many of them in very, very poor, like many people in North America couldn't even understand how poor kind of
Mm,
things. But also Christian schools in different places. We worked with some medical clinics. We worked um, with some theological training centers, and it's not us doing it. There's only a handful of us. There's 9 of us total between the Canada and the United States. So we work with indigenous partners. So
mhm,
we're working with these indigenous reformed people who are already doing the work uh, in their own communities to do that. But then there's agricultural training and vocational training is
mm,
tied to a number of our projects. The idea is because we're working oftentimes our partners are working in the extreme poverty category group of people are just above. So extreme poverty is considered like used to always be like $2 or less. Now it's like 250 or less. But the next category is $8 or less, and I'm talking a day. That's what they live
yeah,
on a day.
yeah,
Um, so these programs are reaching primarily these types of communities with reform people in a variety of ways. But then we do get involved with our partners typically, but a few others. We get involved with some infrastructure projects, which could be uh, a well.
mhm,
We've done. I don't know, in the last couple of years, probably 20-25 wells in different countries around the world. And it could be building a Christian school or adding classrooms or something like that. And again, we are trying to build buildings that are culturally appropriate, right? If you're in a very bad neighborhood and you build some kind of Western monstrosity, you're sending the wrong message. So it's very
sure,
it's with intentionality of how we do it. And always this is discussions with our partner. It's not just us making a decision. None of our projects started because of us. We didn't go to somebody and say, "Hey, you need this over there."
mhm,
These are all organic, grown. In many places, there were reformed missionaries or from one denomination or another had
mhm,
started something, and the people grew, and then they started something else. But we do get involved also in disaster relief. What I find is most people just think we're disaster relief
really?
ministry.
Hmm,
Yeah, and then, even in the circles that I run, and it's like, yeah, that's like 15% of what we do. Yes,
yeah,
we do disaster relief with our partners, typically, but it's a very small
Mm.
aspect. Uh, but all our work is very intentional. We are trying, like even at the wells, John John 3:14 and 15 are there. Whoever needs comes to this and will be thirsty, but yet I can
Mhm.
give you something else to drink, the living water, right?
Mhm.
So that sign is sitting by the wells,
Mhm.
in Kenya. So that even the communities even brought that there at that
Yeah.
time. So
Oh, that's good. Now you do have obviously quite a few different global partners. How do you evaluate, or what type of criteria are you looking for, either when you're looking to partner with a group, or what criteria do you use when you're looking at different projects that might come to you? Because I imagine you
sure.
field all sorts of different
Oh boy, yeah,
propositions. Yeah.
that's pretty. That's Tuesday. You
Right.
know? so
Sure.
um, so we do have a vetting process. Like I was in Uganda a year and a half ago, and the reason why I was there was vetting a new partner. Do they fit? Uh, does the work that they do fit? Does how they do it fit? Is this a one man operation? Is there a
Mm,
board? Um, who have they worked with in the past?
mm,
So we're going to call if they worked with a missionary, if they worked with a different denomination, we're going to make inquiries into these or even different organizations. But then we have written agreements with all our partners.
mm,
So signed written agreements between us and them, and then they were required twice a year to write reports based on that. And it's not like this little paragraph, hey, we did this thing. I mean,
mhm.
the agreements are very specific. There's
Yeah.
point, and they're supposed to report for good or bad. I mean,
Sure.
it's things, problems are going to happen. And then they report on that. And then we go and visit. So, like I mentioned, the countries I go to, and I was just in Ecuador, I was in Costa Rica in June.
Mm.
So then we can match up the agreement with the reports with on-site visits. So again, it's intentional.
No, that's
It's
good.
intentional of how we operate. So
Yeah. What about your partners in the states, in terms of your supporters and the churches where you're visiting? Where I don't know if you break it down percentage wise, or where are you typically visiting? A lot of URCNA congregations, some OPCs here
yeah,
and there.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. We view NAPARC as kind of our home.
Mm,
Well, that's where we were. When Word and Teach started in Canada, it was actually uh, the free it was really the free reforms idea, but the URC was just starting and they brought the URC on right
mm,
away instead of a bunch of small denominations trying to do everything individually on their own.
yeah.
Let's do some of this stuff together, and that's kind of how it came about. So that's why our board is a cross culture of different denominations. I visit a cross culture of, yeah, within NAPARC. That's
Hmm.
the cross culture is not very big, but it's not all Dutch and it's not
Yeah.
all
Sure.
Scottish.
Right. For sure.
But yeah, that's where we're going to. That's where we're visiting as well. And I go visit some seminaries and talk to the new student. I
Hmm.
was at Westminster West in
Yeah.
2 weeks. I got to talk to the students at Mid America, so
There
they,
you go.
new pastors from NAPARC churches can start to learn about us and who we are and what we do.
Hmm.
So planting seeds so that they're familiar with us too.
What are some of the things you're most excited about recently? I mean, I've got some questions. I'd love to share some of the success stories, so to speak, or share some of the ways that the Lord's working through some of your projects. But I'll let you to lead off, perhaps, if there's
Okay.
anything particularly on your heart, or something that really is getting you fired up recently.
Yeah, I would say our newest partner in Uganda. Something
Hmm.
that's new, right? Is always they've been a partner now for a year and a half, and like I mentioned, he's the one coming on our dinner tour. But it's a rescue ministry for Christians who um, convert from Islam and are
Mm-hmm.
under threat of death from their families.
Hmm.
That's what they do. They take them out of their family situation, and most are women. There's a few men in these situations, but the most are women. They've had no training of anything, no education. Oftentimes in these homes, um, the animals are, probably treated better than the women are. And what happens if these women convert? Um, is the men will kick them out with the children, and what they're trying to do is make them so desolate that they return,
They come back.
and then
Hmm.
yeah, and then they come back, and then it's like I heard stories about I heard some horrific stories when I
Mm.
was families poisoning. I mean, I was at a graduation of our vocational training project with them. Families had tried to poison a couple girls to death. One family brought a son out into the middle of the jungle, hoping the animals killed him. Um,
Because he converted to Christianity. He professed Christ.
and so these guys are trying to take them out of that. And then what they do is, because the women don't have any training, they have two vocational uh, types of training. One is sewing, and one is hair care. So they train them for 6 8 months in these things, and then provide them. If it's sewing, a sewing machine, a table, and
Hmm.
a few other things they can do to get started.
Hmm.
If it's hair care, some things to get started for hair care. So, but when they take them out of their family, they move them to a different town. So they're not by the town they are. They were telling me about one guy who was gone 8 months, and then the family finally figured out where he was at and
Oh,
hunted him down and killed him.
still. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you brought
Mm.
shame on the family.
Hmm.
Um, so they go in another, they're put in another home. They get this training. They're in a church. And the amazing thing to me is they are new Christians. This is not somebody who grew up Christianity for 30, 40, 50 years holding up to persecution. This is
Right.
somebody who's been a Christian for 6 months or 2 months, and they're
Hmm.
willing to go to these lengths
Hmm.
uh, as well. But you can see that the Spirit's really moving because they know what they have,
Hmm.
and that salvation in Jesus is more important than whatever happens there. Now, do they want to be persecuted? Of course not, or whatever.
Mm.
So that um, we have a lot of great projects, but that one just touches your heart because there's nothing
Right.
like it.
Now, I
So
remember seeing that one in the video that you presented at our
yeah,
church. I don't know if we can share. Maybe we don't need to share any details, but would you be able to at least express what happened to the man that was featured in that video? Because I think that was a powerful story too.
yeah. So what happened there is an imam's daughter, a Muslim imam. So think of that as a pastor, right? His daughter converted through some friends at school who were Christians, and so he beat her. And so El Shaddai, who was the name of the ministry, was afraid that they were going to kill her. That dad would kill her, so they took her out uh, of that situation, placed her in another home in another town, and then she went to a Christian school. Well, then the Muslim rebels in the Congo, because this is all kind of on the Congo Uganda border. They're pretty close to that. Came out of the Congo and attacked that Christian school and killed 43 people. Well, that even
Mm.
made the news in America, even in Christian circles. People are like aware of that. People as well. Well, his daughter was one of them,
Mm.
and so then in Uganda, what you do is you go to your friends, and then they help you give money, and then you can bury him. But the other imams refused to give him money to bury his daughter. They said she was an infidel. So he allowed the Christians to bury her, who the Christians wanted to bury her anyway. They thought maybe there may even be a fight over the burial. So he allowed that. He stood 5 feet away from Pastor Youngson the whole funeral and just
Mm.
stared at him, and he did the funeral. And then after the funeral, like a day, I think like a day later or two, he goes, I want to meet with you. And then Pastor Youngson was afraid he wanted to kill him,
Mm.
but he agreed. He did agree to meet with him. And at the meeting, the man says, I want to see Jesus.
Wow.
So at that daughter's funeral was the start of his conversion.
Hmm.
So So then, over time and teaching, accepted that he came to Christ,
Sure.
and
Sure.
um, uh, he had to go into hiding.
Mhm.
But through his contacts, he's probably brought over another 100 Muslims to Christ since then. So, God in his providence worked it through his daughter's conversion and death that he
Mhm.
came and then could bring others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still
It's
can't wrap my brain
amazing.
around that,
No, it's
so but
powerful. Well, it's wonderful to know that there's a ministry that El Shaddai that's doing that, not only giving people immediate safety, to protect them from persecution from their own families, but then also to seek to, provide a new family context for them, in Christ, so to speak, and then to train them up and give them skills and enable them so they can live economically now that they, have been excised from their family situation and their livelihood. So in a sense, it's a holistic effort here, and that enables the gospel to go forth. And I presume that they're also being discipled and taught and trained
yeah.
all the
Oh,
while,
sure,
and
yeah, yeah,
in the Bible and in the scriptures, even as they're learning a trade. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Are there some other areas? Can you mention some of the other activities in maybe Uganda, because you've been at work, even helping to build a theological
yeah.
school, right?
So we've helped Knox Theological School with some building
Hmm.
projects and dorms. So we do get involved in some of those kind of things. So we've been there. We've been in Kampala with the medical clinic to do housing for the medical staff
Mm.
that the OPC has there too. So yeah, we've kind of that's kind of been the thing that we've done there is some of those things. So we call those one time projects because like once the building's up or
Yeah, it's
it's
done.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Move on. Go build something
yeah,
else.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good. No, I appreciate that. Um, yeah, how do you typically, I guess, with that raises an interesting question, because you are partnering with people that are engaging in theological education, but you're also working alongside of and working on similar projects to other denominations. You did mention some of the denominations you already partner with, but I should ask, I suppose, just in the bigger picture, how does Word and Deed view itself, herself, whatever pronoun we want to use?
yeah.
Do you choose your pronouns? I don't know. Not in
No,
that sense.
no, not
But
normally.
more or less, just speaking about, we've had conversations about how to conceive of the parachurch ministry, and
Yeah,
both you and I and us here at Reform Forum have thought long and hard about how we're seeking to support the church and not supplant or substitute for the church.
sure,
So, what are some
absolutely.
ways in which you're doing that at Word and Deed, and ways in which you certainly want to engage and support, right, and be a para-church, not a quasi church?
Sure. Yeah. So, first of all, I mean, I think you have board members that first of all understand that. So our
Yeah, that
board
helps.
members, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
have that and don't
Uh-huh.
want to separate themselves from the idea of the church, because that's the number one thing. But
Mhm.
so, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, some of our projects came directly from churches that couldn't do it. Right? They couldn't do it. Now that's more on an individual level, but also in other places in the world, we work directly with denominations so they can fulfill their mission as a church. It's not us doing it; it's these churches themselves fulfilling
Mm.
that mission. But they need our help to fulfill that mission. Uh, and kind of funny because even in my own denomination, uh, some of them are starting to visit the denominations that we've been working with for some years, and now they're
Mhm.
just they're coming and visiting. It's like, oh, we've been there already for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
So that gives us a little freedom, right, and a little flexibility. But we're like-minded denominations that come
Mm.
together to do this work. We are not an independent player. I'm sure in your mind, you're not really an independent
No.
player either. It's that we're all on the same team,
Mhm.
working together um, for the church. And in some places, like even Uganda, which is interesting, and India, another partner that we have there. Um, in Uganda, this El Shaddai could not be done under the church. because
Hmm.
if the church was doing it, the church would be persecuted by the Muslims. So
Hmm.
that's why they had to come up with a different organization
Huh.
to do this.
Yeah.
So if we would keep it in the church, we'd actually cause persecution on the church in
Yeah, the
Uganda.
organized church would be kicked out or destroyed or in some sense
Attacked. There would
attacked in
be
the
attacked.
country. Yeah,
Yeah, because crazy thing, Uganda is a Christian country, like
sure.
openly Christian country, but yet you have this in certain areas you have this struggle. But the
Mm,
same thing in India. We work with a denomination there, and we work with their diaconal arm because the church can't do it. The government
mhm,
doesn't allow the church to do that. I think we have that in one of our partners in South America. Because of now that's not religious, that's more political. The government doesn't like the Christians, but if the church was doing a certain project, no, they can't do that. But
mm,
it has to be like an arm of, it's quasi church, but because that's how it has to be. It's not it's,
mm.
because of government involvement
Yeah,
in a
there are
bad.
obstacles. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face, maybe in general, but or maybe even in specific fields? What are some of the ways that we might be able to keep word and deed in prayer, and maybe some people might be able to be raised up to help meet some of these challenges?
Yeah. So, oftentimes when we do get called is often when a disaster happens and it's on
Mm,
the news, right?
hmm.
That is the pretty typical time, and that's good too because people have a heart to be involved. But we have to remember too that it takes organization. Everybody wants to give within the first week or two, but it probably takes
Mm,
6 weeks to get organized before you can even do anything. So patience is needed in those situations to make sure you do it right,
hmm.
to do disaster relief right, and that you're organized. And you got to care about your partner because you can't just say go do this, and not think about what that means for your partner and how they're going to accomplish that. But you know, there's things all over the world, and I know I hear that from people. There's a lot of the good things around the world, and I agree. There are a lot of good
Mm,
works around the world, but um, to make sure that something is unique, not uniquely, but yeah, uniquely reformed. Like we are doing this from a reform perspective. We're doing it from a gospel ministry point of view. Um, and so, yeah, right now we're building Christian school in South Sudan,
wow,
and, as well. We've helped with a cardiac unit in some equipment. I can't remember what it was in Pakistan.
goodness,
So, because there's a Christian hospital in Pakistan.
really.
So, yeah, that's an ARP hospital.
Mm,
So in Pakistan. So there to pinpoint like one thing, there's not a big disaster that's going on, but just the everyday needs of everyday people.
yeah,
We reach 20,000 children a week
wow.
um, through our programs, whether it's the vulnerable children program in Malawi or Christian schools or the after school programs. And the after school programs in India, I mean, uh, I know one is over 8 or 9,000. I think the other one's three. I mean, I'd have to say our after school programs are probably 2/3 of that there. And those children live on, those are families that barely live on anything.
Mhm.
So the need is great in multiple places because I could take you to the shanty towns of Costa Rica where I go visit uh, my partner there, who's a shantytown ministry, and actually one of the elder who runs it is from a Reformed church that a URC missionary started. So,
Really? In Costa
but
Rica? Yeah.
yeah, so I could show you, how bad it is in a shanty town in Costa Rica, but then I could take you across the world and show you how bad or, some of our other programs are. We're
Mhm.
just not used to it as North Americans. It's just we
Yeah,
know
we
it's
don't see
there.
it. Oh, we hide it.
Intellectually we
Yeah.
understand that
Mhm.
it's there. Um, but when you're faced with it, it's different. So half our budget is these kinds of programs.
Mm.
Just theirs, half our I think I mentioned disaster relief 15%. But some of the disasters right now, people wouldn't even know. Did you know that there was in the Philippines an eruption of a volcano?
Mm, I don't think
Unless you
so. I saw a picture of an erupting volcano on my Twitter feed at some point. I don't know where it was though. It might have been Philippines.
but yeah, but the average person,
Yeah.
I even
Yeah, of
said this
course.
to the list. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, of course, yeah. The average person, the stuff just passes through. We don't know. We don't pay attention unless it's in our backyard or we know somebody there, or we see it, we recognize it for a couple minutes, and then the news streams by, and you're on to the next thing.
Yep.
But people are
Yeah,
really
because
hurting and suffering, and they need help in these places.
things that did get around a little bit was in Azerbaijan, an ethnic pushing out of Armenians out of there about a year and a half ago. So we're helping with that, but that's not
Wow.
on everybody. Yeah, they may have heard of that, but it's not on your radar. A lot of the disasters that
Hmm.
we're doing are not on people's radars, and we're doing
Mm,
them a couple, 5, 10 a year. That are um, yeah,
wow.
we're not advertising it all the time either. Sometimes in our magazine we might mention, hey, we're doing this or
Sure.
whatever on our website, but there's just a lot of that all the time.
Hmm.
So
Now, for somebody who just now watching this live stream or watching it after the fact, and they're just hearing about Word and Deed for the first time, what are some practical ways that they might be able to get involved, even beyond giving financially?
okay. Well, first of all, we're looking for prayer,
Hmm.
and the best way for someone to be in prayer is to be informed. And if your church is not getting a magazine, request a magazine
Mm,
because then you know how to pray. You can read about a project. We have our actual partners write some of the articles, the staff writes some of the articles, but then you know exactly, hey, this is going on here. This is exactly how I can pray uh, for what is going on in the world
mm,
that I don't know, and in the work that Word Indeed is doing. So
mhm.
staying informed and prayer are really um, the two biggest, because when you're informed, you can pray.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I suppose also just visit the website. Is it
yeah,
wordindeed.org? Am I correct?
yep, and
That's the
it's the
place to
word.
go.
It's not a hyperstand. You got to do with the A and D.
You spell it out, yeah. An ampersand means something else in URL language.
Well,
That's a very important character for those web developers out there. They know that, but yeah, you can't have that in your base base domain name. But that's
yeah,
tremendous. And Dave, you're going to be out here
yeah,
in for our conference, right?
yep, yeah. Gonna
Coming
have
to
a
visit.
table there in a couple weeks, and
So
yeah, that's another
everyone,
stop I'm making. I didn't even include that stop in
well,
there.
we knew you were
So,
coming through the area, but I want to let people know that if they're coming to the Reform Forum conference
oh,
September
absolutely,
27th, they'll be able to hang out and come visit the table and see Word and Deed there and speak with Dave and get
yeah,
get a much fuller treatment and description of all the different projects that are going on throughout the world. There's just a never ending wealth of stories and testimonies to God's grace working in and through His people, and you can get a taste of that by visiting the website wordindeed.org, but also particularly and especially by getting the newsletter. So that's great. Well, Dave, thanks
yeah.
so much for
Well,
joining me
thank you,
today. I really appreciate the brief time, and we'll definitely encourage people to follow up with you.
yeah, happy to be with you.
You
Thanks.
bet. Well, hang on for just a minute. I just want to thank everybody also for watching our live stream and for joining. Thanks for the chat we're getting live. I'm doing my best. I don't have my sidekick here today who's watching the chat, so he's out. But I've been keeping an eye on it as well, and I'm thankful for everybody participating, for watching. Hopefully, quite a few more will be watching after the fact as this is posted on our YouTube channel. And again, visit us online, reformedforum.org/conference for info on the conference. We'd love to have you here. We'd love to speak with you, and we'd love to introduce you in person to Dave Vander Meer and Word Indeed Ministries. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.